In this video, we're going to go against BMW's lifetime fluid claim and service the automatic transmission fluid.
We start by jacking up the car. Getting tired of saying this, but if doing this at home, recommend to use drive-up ramps on level ground on all four wheels to keep the vehicle squared up level. Also, a good idea to have a fan blown underneath the vehicle for airflow ventilation. And you may need to take Tylenol at the end of this service because the ATF smell is gonna give you a major headache. To get access to the transmission, need to remove the center underbelly splash panel.
Next, secure and fully seat the T45 torque socket into the drain bolt to prevent stripping. Remove the drain bolt and drain fluid into a container to absorb fluid. The original trans fluid pouring out of the car still has a tint of gold, which you can see under the light, indicating the transmission is still okay and safe to do the trans service. Next, we're going to remove all the bolts around the transmission pan. We also recommend to crack the trans bolt loose with a 1/4-inch ratchet because of the age of the bolts, it can snap with the use of power tools. As you drop the transmission pan down, more trans fluid is going to pour out, so keep the trans pan level as you drop it down. Now you can visibly see the transmission filter and the mechatronics spout body.
Inside the trans pan, there's a magnetic square that also helps collect metallic debris floating around in the fluid.
Ooh, that's nice and gooey. Yeah, look how... It's like touching dog shit. Even though I never really did that.
Next, remove the filter off the transmission. The seals of the filter still remain inside the transmission bore and also need to be removed. For the next step, JDM Picatoro is going to show you what to do.
I have a handle. I have a soap. Wash, 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 wash,
Next, use an angle pick and a hook pick to remove seals out of the bore.
Careful not to gouge or scratch the bore while removing the seals with the picks.
Still one more half seal to remove.
Inspect the bore after seals are removed.
Next, inspect the new trans filter.
Next, you're going to baptize the new seals off the trans filter using trans fluid. Now install the trans filter back into mounting position. Seals on a new filter aren't exactly soft, so some force is required to seal trans filter to inside bore.
Next, crack loose and remove the fill bolts off the trans. The transmission gasket seal kit should have also included new hardware for the trans pan. Check the new bolt's thread pitch and length before installing pan back onto transmission. When installing the trans pan, keep it nice, level, and balanced to make sure the pan gasket does not move out of position. Hand thread in the first few turns of the new bolts all around the pan. Next, with holding the pan with even pressure, tighten the first few bolts in cross sequence with light torque settings at the power screw gun. Finally, check the torque of the bolts using old school German good and tight sequence by hand.
Next, apply anti-seize to the drain bolt. It will be easier to remove the bolt in future services. Also, now would be a good time to replace the old drain plug bolt with a magnetic drain bolt. Clean entire perimeter of the trans pan using brake clean or a parts cleaner. Next, replace the crush washer on fill bolt and put anti-seize on fill bolt. Also, using a special money back pump tool, it can hold the entire capacity of fluid that we need to pump into the transmission until it achieves the fill mark. We're using Castrol Transmax Dextron formula that's found in the black bottle.
Next, insert pump tube inside the fill hole with the best of your ability and pump in the trans fluid. The transmission is going to take 5 quarts of fluid, so make sure you have another 2 quarts on hand. Once the fluid starts to pour out of the fill hole, plug in the fill bolt into the trans.
Oopsie daisy.
And tighten the bolt.
Oof. The smell is outrageous.
Next, lower the vehicle and start the engine. With the engine running, we're going to cycle through all of the gear positions at least 5 times with a few seconds in between each gear change to cycle each of the valve body chambers inside mechatronics unit.
Next, we follow the test plan's oil level check. Engine and transmission must achieve operating temperatures of between 30 degrees to 50 degrees Celsius. Once the temperature is achieved, with the engine still running, raise the vehicle and remove the trans fill bolt again.
Man, that's hot.
Once the ATF starts to pour out of the fill hole, the transmission achieved the fill mark.
Hot.
Install and tighten the fill bolt to spec.
We'll do it 3 or 15.
Once again, clean the area up with brake clean.
Afterwards, you may need to reset the transmission adaptation values through the EGS control module. Now, we're going to drive it for a few days and put approximately 500 miles and monitor the transmission shifting behavior. Since I didn't have any shifting issues, we're going to perform a second drain and fill service. The purpose of why we're doing a second drain is because the torque converter retains some of the old fluids that did not pour out during the first service.
You still see a little bit of the brass stuff in there, like it's like goldish.
Yeah, it's just a little shine. Little specks of like gold.
So by driving and circulating the ATF fluid, by the second drain and fill service, the transmission will have about 90% of fresh ATF fluid running through it safely. So same process is repeated again. Pump fluid till the fill mark achieved. Tighten fill bolt. Start engine and cycle through all the gear positions several times. Wait till the temperature achieves 30 degrees Celsius. Remove the fill bolt once again with the engine running. Pump more ATF till pours out. Tighten fill bolt, brake clean area, install underbelly splash panel, reset adaptation values, and that's it. So as of today, the automatic transmission behavior still reacts the same as when the second ATF service was performed. Silky smooth shifts.
Since all the drivetrain fluids were serviced around the same time, there was a noticeable difference on how smooth the car drove as if it were a new car with no miles on it. I have also noticed that the fuel consumption was less and matched factory MPG ratings to spec.
Whenever it's cruising, speeding, or climbing up hills, the internals of this automatic transmission today respond the same way as it did when it rolled out of the factory in Germany on day 1.
The next video is going to be changing out the .4 brake fluid, so stay tuned.